and welcome to Global Scan, your weekly dose of top international news. In the next 30 minutes, we will tell you about a spate of terror incidents in France and condemnation for the attacks pouring in from various countries, including India. The latest opinion polls in the US ahead of the presidential election, why France and Germany have decided to impose lockdowns, and all the news from the world of sports and entertainment. I'm Munman Bhattacharya. First up, the big stories of the week. Knife-wielding attacker kills 3 people in an attack at a church in the French city of Nice. In a separate incident in France, a man waving a gun shot dead by police saw the man arrested for attack at French consulate in Jeddah. French President Emmanuel Macron says France has been attacked for its values, condemns the Nice church attack as an Islamist terrorist attack. French authorities place France on its highest terrorism threat level. India, EU, Canada and Australia join other countries in condemning the attack. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India stands with France in the fight against terrorism. US Supreme Court permits Pennsylvania, a key battleground state, to count mail-in ballots received up to 3 days after the election. The court also allows for counting ballots in North Carolina received up to 9 days after the election, as long as they are postmarked by election day, opening up the possibility that the US poll result may not be known for days after the 3rd of November. Opinion polls in the United States show Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden maintaining his lead over his Republican rival President Donald Trump in 6 battleground and potentially swing states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Arizona, Michigan and North Carolina. India leads the battle in the fight against COVID-19, sustains global position of being a country with one of the lowest cases per million population and deaths per million population. France and Germany impose lockdowns. A study in UK suggests that protection after COVID-19 infection may not be long-lasting. In Champions League, Bayern Munich records a tough 2-1 win over Lokomotiv Moscow in a Group A clash. Liverpool defeats Danish champions Midtjylland 2-0 in a low-key game behind closed doors at Anfield. Let's get started with news from America. With US presidential polls around the corner, US President Donald Trump and his Democratic challenger Joe Biden are pulling out all stops to woo voters. The campaign is heating up in the final lap, and a US Supreme Court decision could have a bearing on when the result of the poll would be known. The US Supreme Court on Thursday rejected another bid by North Carolina Republicans to block the extension of a deadline for receiving mail-in ballots for next Tuesday's election. In a brief order, the justices denied a request by Republican lawmakers in the state to put on hold an agreement made by state election officials allowing the extension that a North Carolina state court had approved. The justices on Wednesday rebuffed a separate bid by President Donald Trump's re-election campaign to block the deadline extension through federal courts. Donald Trump and Joe Biden held dueling rallies in the critical election state of Florida on Thursday. Trump said that he disagrees with the proposition of imposing a lockdown again, as now they have understood the disease and are open for business, while Biden hit out, saying Trump has given up as the US is currently seeing a record rate of infection and is nearing 9 million confirmed cases. Biden also urged a national mask mandate, terming it as a patriotic duty and not a political stand. Florida is a must-win for Trump, and a key opinion poll average shows him 1.4 points behind Biden, which amounts to a statistical dead heat. Over 80 million people have already voted, 52 million of them by mail, setting the US on course for its highest electoral turnout rate in more than a century. In the US election system, it is the state-level results that count. Each state has a number of electoral votes based on population, and many reliably vote the same way each time. Democratic presidential challenger Joe Biden leads President Donald Trump by a solid margin in Wisconsin and maintains a narrower advantage in Pennsylvania. Opinion polls show Biden with a significant edge nationally, but his lead is tighter in battleground states. Let's understand in detail who is ahead and where. Let's now take a look at what national opinion polls have to say about 6 states, the mood in the 6 states, so to say, just ahead of the US presidential elections. Out of these 6 states, 4 states are battleground states and 2 states are potentially swing states. Arizona and North Carolina are the potentially swing states, whereas the other 4 states that you are seeing, and you're looking at Wisconsin as well as Pennsylvania, and there will be other 2 states as well, that had actually shifted from voting for Barack Obama in 2012 to voting for Donald Trump in 2016. So these are the 5 states that you see. Remember, Florida is a swing state. North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin and Arizona, they are either battleground states or potentially swing states. So let's take a look at what the national opinion polls done by Reuters and Ipsos actually says about what the mood is in these 6 very critical states. In Wisconsin, 53% of the people polled said that they are voting for Biden, 44% said they are voting for Trump. So that is the lead that you're looking at of around 9% that Biden enjoys over Trump in Wisconsin. Biden's advantage marginally wider than his 51% to 43% lead the prior week. So Biden's lead in Wisconsin is increasing as per the latest national opinion poll. That's about Wisconsin. Let's shift focus to Pennsylvania. In the week between October 20 and October 26, this particular opinion poll was done. 50% say they are voting for Biden and 45% say they are voting for Trump. So the lead now being 5%. What was it earlier? It was earlier 4%. Biden's lead marginally wider than the 4% lead the prior week that Joe Biden enjoyed. So here too in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's lead is increasing as per the national opinion poll. Let's take a look at Florida, and in the week between October 14 and October 20, this opinion poll was carried out. 50% say they are voting for Biden, 46% say they are voting for Trump. So there is a lead of 4% that Joe Biden enjoys in Florida. Prior polls showed the two essentially even, with Biden at 49% and Trump at 47%. So the earlier lead was only 2% that Joe Biden had. Now the lead has increased. Let's look at what the people in Arizona have to say in the opinion poll carried out between 14th October and 21st October. 49% said they are voting for Biden. In Arizona, 46% said they are voting for Trump. So the lead of Biden was 3%. What was it earlier? We'll tell you now about that. Earlier, Biden's lead was 4%. 50% said they are voting for Biden. 46% said they were voting for Trump. In Michigan, voting for Biden, 51%. Voting for Trump, 44%. So here the lead of Biden is quite significant. What was it earlier? We'll tell you now about that. Biden was up 51% to 43% the prior week. So here too, Biden's lead has increased in Michigan. Let's take a look at the other state, North Carolina. In this week between October 14th and October 20, 49% said they are voting for Biden. 46% said they are voting for Trump. So the lead of Biden is 3%. In the prior poll, Biden had 48% to Trump's 47%. So here too, the lead of Biden has increased in North Carolina as well. In other news from America, California's wildfire continues to ravage around the region. The blazes have compelled over 60,000 Californians to evacuate as hundreds of thousands across the state endured a power cut due to heightened fire risk from high winds. The fire has swept over 4 million acres of land and claimed 31 lives in this year. Meanwhile, red flag warnings for incendiary weather conditions remained in place across California due to extreme winds that are likely to produce gusts of up to 70 to 80 miles per hour. Now we get your news from Europe. The man who killed 3 people in a knife attack in a church in Nice on Thursday is a 21-year-old Tunisian migrant. Police sources named the attacker as Brahim Ais-Sai. The suspect had an Italian Red Cross document issued after he arrived by a migrant boat to Italy's Lampedusa island last month. He was shot by police and is in a critical condition. Meanwhile, President Emmanuel Macron said it was an Islamist terrorist attack. Macron added the number of soldiers being deployed to protect public places such as churches and schools would rise from 3,000 to 7,000. The country's security alert has been raised to the highest level. 2 women and a man were stabbed to death in a church in France on Thursday. The European Union and Canada condemned the Nice attack. European Council President Charles Michel said the attacks were perpetrated against democracy, against freedoms, and said the 27-member bloc should be united, standing to defend these values which bring us together and which are democracy, the rule of law, and fundamental freedom. Other leaders, including European Commission President and Canadian Prime Minister, called the attack hideous and brutal and said there should be no place for violence or intolerance in our societies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has strongly condemned the recent terrorist attacks in France, including the heinous attack in Nice inside a church. In a tweet, Prime Minister Modi conveyed condolences to the families of the victims and the people of France. He said India stands with France in the fight against terrorism. Factory workers chanted slogans, students and pensioners took to the streets, and police detained at least 235 people on the 26th of October as the Belarusian opposition sought to intensify pressure on veteran leader Alexander Lukashenko with a nationwide strike. Lukashenko defied an ultimatum to surrender power by midnight, challenging his opponents to carry out a threat to paralyze the country with strikes nearly 3 months after his disputed election victory unleashed mass protests. The opposition mounted strikes at state-run factories previously, but they were not sustained. Our correspondent Julia Chapman gets us this report from Moscow.
Workers across Belarus are heeding the call of opposition figure Svetlana Tikhanovskaya to walk out of their workplaces on Monday and stop using government services, as well as withdrawing money from state-run banks, all in an effort to try to put pressure on President Alexander Lukashenko after 11 weeks now of protests against his rule. But this is a big test for the opposition to see how many people they can get to go on strike amid accusations that the protest movement is losing steam. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya issued what she called the people's ultimatum to Alexander Lukashenko to step down from his post before October 25th. He has continued to refuse to do so, which is why she is now calling for all the supporters that she has in Belarus to walk out of their jobs. Now, this comes, of course, after Alexander Lukashenko won a presidential vote in August with more than 80% of the vote, and that is a result that has been disputed by the opposition, most of whom are now either in exile or in prison. But nevertheless, every weekend, tens of thousands of people continue to take to the streets of Minsk and other cities around Belarus, calling for an end to the Lukashenko era, which has now been continuing for 26 years.
Now let's shift focus to news from Asia. In a sensational admission, a senior Pakistani minister on Thursday admitted that Pakistan was responsible for the Pulwama terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir in 2019 that killed 40 CRPF personnel and brought the two countries to the brink of a war. Bharatiya Janata Party's national president JP Nadda criticized Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and his party for weakening the morale of the Indian Army. Sharing a video of PMLN, a leader talking about the Indian Air Force pilot Abhinandan Vardhaman in Pakistan Parliament, Nadda tweeted saying, "Congress party premised its entire campaign around keeping our armed forces weak. They mocked our armed forces, questioned their valor and tried every trick to ensure India does not get the latest Rafale planes. The people of India rejected such politics and punished Congress. Congress's princeling does not believe anything Indian, be it our army, our government, our citizens." So here is something from his most trusted nation, Pakistan. Hopefully, now he sees some light. The air connectivity between Bangladesh and India resumed on Wednesday with 2 flights leaving Dhaka under the air bubble arrangement between the two countries. The service was inaugurated at the Hazrat Shah Jalal Airport in Dhaka by the High Commissioner of India and Bangladesh, Vikram Doraiswamy, and the Chairman of the Civil Aviation Authority of Bangladesh, Air Vice Marshal Mafidur Rahman. The first 2 flights operated by the US Bangla Airlines left for Kolkata and Chennai from Dhaka. The opening of the flights has come as a big relief to people travelling between the two countries. It has been welcomed especially by the people who needed urgent medical support in India. Thanking the Civil Aviation Ministry for the start of the air bubble service, High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy said that it will be especially useful for people with medical requirements. He said the services will help in strengthening people-to-people contact between the two countries. Azerbaijan and Armenia accused each other of killing civilians by shelling cities in and around Nagorno-Karabakh on the 28th of October in an escalation of a month-long conflict over the mountain enclave that has defied 3 ceasefires. Azerbaijan said 21 people were killed when Armenian shells hit the town of Barda, northeast of Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenian-backed officials in Nagorno-Karabakh said Azeri shells had fallen on the enclave's 2 largest cities, killing 1 person. Both sides denied each other's claims. The Defense Ministry of the breakaway Nagorno-Karabakh region said on Thursday that the Armenian-controlled cities of Stepanakert and Sushi were shelled by Azerbaijan. Fighting has surged to its worst since the 1990s, when about 30,000 people were killed. Both sides of the conflict regularly accuse each other of targeting civilian population and infrastructure. News now from Africa. A UN climate agency said on Monday that floods, droughts, hotter weather and a desert locust invasion, the impacts of climate change are hitting Africa hard, and worse is ahead for the region's food supplies, economy and health. Temperatures have been rising on the continent of 1.2 billion at a comparable rate to other regions, but Africa is exceptionally vulnerable to the shock, according to the World Meteorological Organization. Warming temperatures are slashing crop yields. Agriculture is the backbone of Africa's economy. It projected a reduction in yields of 13% in West and Central Africa, 11% in North Africa, and 8% in East and Southern Africa. Lockdowns in France and Germany, a study in UK suggesting that protection after COVID-19 infection may not be long-lasting, and more COVID-related news from across the globe in COVID Scan.
With focused strategy and proactive as well as calibrated measures of the Union government along with the states and Union territories, India has sustained its global position of being the country with one of the lowest cases per million population and deaths per million population. The deaths per million population in India are substantially lower than the world average. India's targeted strategies in COVID-19 management and the proactive as well as calibrated public health response over the last several months have resulted in encouraging outcomes. Widespread and comprehensive testing on a sustained basis have aided the early identification and timely effective treatment, which has resulted in higher recoveries and lower fatality rate. As India continues to fight its battle with COVID-19, testing has also been ramped up. Facing a record-breaking surge of COVID-19 cases, the US border city of El Paso in Texas is now under a nighttime curfew, with parks and recreational facilities closed for 14 days. A county judge ordered late Sunday a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew due to the COVID-19 crisis. The curfew order went into effect immediately, but it does not apply to essential workers or people traveling. The situation is similar across the border in Juarez, Mexico. With a similar surge in cases, Juarez has also implemented a nighttime curfew and has even banned weekend alcohol sales. Spain's intensive care wards could reach a critical situation by mid-November as the country emerges as one of Europe's worst COVID-19 hotspots. Meanwhile, medical staff staged a protest in Madrid, the first of a series of one-day strikes across Spain to demand better working conditions. Holding banners reading "Let's Save Healthcare," health workers stood with crossed arms in front of Madrid's parliament and La Paz hospital in a symbol of defiance. Strikes will be held on the last Tuesday of every month, with an estimated 85% of doctors taking part. Spain plans to raise taxes on large companies and wealthy people to fund increased spending on social care and infrastructure as part of its 2021 budget. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, in a televised statement, has said that this budget cannot be postponed. It's essential for the modernization and recovery of the economy. Adding to the worries of the world, a study conducted in the UK has suggested that protection after COVID-19 infection may not be long-lasting, raising the prospect of waning immunity. Scientists at Imperial College of London have found that antibody prevalence fell by a quarter from 6% of the population around the end of June to just 4.4% in September. They said it raises the prospect of decreasing population immunity ahead of a second wave of infections in recent weeks that has forced local lockdowns and restrictions. Italy has approved a package of measures to support businesses hit by new restrictions aimed at reining in coronavirus pandemic, hours after daily infections hit a new record high and COVID-19 related deaths jumped. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said the measures will cost $6.38 billion and include grants, tax breaks and additional funds for temporary layoff schemes. For the first time, Italy registered more than 200 fatalities in a single day since mid-May. In an effort to curb the resurgent outbreak, Conte ordered bars and restaurants to close by 6 p.m. and shut gyms, cinemas and swimming pools, triggering protests against the closures in several cities. France will go back into a nationwide lockdown starting this week to try to contain the COVID-19 pandemic that is again threatening to spiral out of control. French President Emmanuel Macron said in an address to the nation on the 28th of October, the new measures he announced, which come into force on the 30th of October, will mean people have to stay at their homes except to buy essential goods, seek medical attention, or use their daily 1 hour allocation of exercise. People will still be allowed to go to work if their employer deems it impossible for them to do the job from home. And in a departure from the previous lockdown in March, most schools will remain open. Germany will impose an emergency lockdown from the 2nd of November. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has announced that month-long lockdown will include the closure of restaurants, gyms and theatres, but not schools or daycare centres. The Chancellor said the measures were necessary to avoid a national emergency.
Water has been found on the moon's sunlit surface for the first time. That and more news from the world of science, art, entertainment and adventure in Beyond Headlines, stories that make news but not headlines.
NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, SOFIA, has confirmed water on the sunlit surface of the moon for the first time. Scientists said that lunar water is more widespread, with water molecules trapped within mineral grains on the surface and more water perhaps hidden in ice patches residing in permanent shadows. The findings suggest that water may be distributed across the surface of the moon and not limited to its colder regions. Larger-than-life sculpture by Swiss artist Alberto Giacometti is being sold at Sotheby's in New York on Tuesday. The monumental bronze, at 105-inch tall, called Grand Femme 1, is being offered by Sotheby's in a private sealed bid sale, where prospective buyers were required to submit their bids. Grand Femme 1 is one of 4 sculptures Giacometti conceived and cast in 1960, originally to be installed in Chase Plaza in Manhattan, but the installation never happened. Overflowing with aging cats who lost their owners to the COVID-19 pandemic, Barcelona's cat sanctuary El Jardinet dels Gats has launched an online campaign to get them adopted. As cats of all colors, shapes and sizes basked in autumn sunshine in the courtyard, the shelter owner was caught shooting an advertisement for whatever you can afford donations virtually. The epidemic has also brought in new volunteers. French land artist Sabe showed his latest frescoes of giant spray-painted human chain in Istanbul on Monday as part of an art project composed of interlocked hands across the world in a bid to promote humanity and equality. The 8th installment in Istanbul is composed of 3 parts. One piece is in Bogazici University on the European side in Istanbul. Another one is on a floating platform sailing in the waterway of Istanbul's Golden Horn. And the 3rd fresco is in Beykoz on the Asian continent. The artist describes his project as the biggest human chain in the world. A former British paratrooper, John Brame, nicknamed the Flying Fish, attempted to set a new world record on Monday by jumping into the sea from a helicopter without a parachute cord for the highest free jump from an aircraft. A safety team with divers watched and waited as Bream fell towards the water near Hailing Island off the south coast of England. The stunt was arranged in a bid to raise the awareness and help prevent veteran suicide, as well as to raise smiles during the coronavirus pandemic.
BCCI announces Indian squads for all three formats for the upcoming Australia tour, and Manchester City continues their perfect start to the Champions League group stage. All that and more sports action of the week from across the world.
BCCI has announced the Indian squads for all three formats for upcoming Australia tour, scheduled to begin from November 27. Virat Kohli will be leading the team in all three formats, while ace batsman Rohit Sharma, pacer Ishant Sharma and Bhuvneshwar Kumar have been left out due to injuries. KL Rahul has been included in all the three formats, while Rishabh Pant has been retained as a wicketkeeper in the test squads, while KL Rahul will be keeping wickets in ODIs and T20 internationals. The schedule for India's tour to Australia has been rubber-stamped, with Adelaide to host day-night tests as a part of 4-match series. Melbourne is also set for traditional Boxing Day test with a crowd up to 25,000. The ODIs will start on November 27, just 2 days after the players complete quarantine. Liverpool defeated Danish champion Midtjylland 2-0 in a low-key game behind closed doors at Anfield. Diogo Jota finished a fine move to give Jurgen Klopp's team the lead early in the second half before Mohamed Salah made sure of the points with a late penalty. Klopp's defensive worries have deepened as Fabiano went off with an apparent hamstring injury. Real Madrid staged a dramatic comeback to take first point. Marcus Thuram's double had the host in command until the last 3 minutes. Then Karim Benzema hooked in and Casemiro converted a header across goal by Sergio Ramos to prize a draw for Zinedine Zidane's side. This was Madrid's first draw in 19 Champions League away games. Manchester City continued their perfect start to the Champions League group stage with a comfortable victory at Marseille. The visitors broke the deadlock in the first half as new signing Ferran Torres tapped home inside the area. Ike Gundogan pounced on Raheem Sterling's knockdown to make it 2 after a great work by Phil Foden. Sterling grabbed a third for rampant visiting side as City maintained their 100% record.
Now all the bats from the world of cinema in showbiz.
Movie lovers got a turn on the red carpet at Cannes on Tuesday night as the organizers of the famed film festival kicked off a more low-key 3-day event showcasing a range of short films. Usually crawling with Hollywood stars, Cannes was a much quieter version of his glamorous self. The organizers wanted to hold an event all the same, despite enduring travel restrictions, to shine a light on some films and give a boost to the cinema industry. The event on France's southern coast is the world's biggest cinema showcase and also a major market for the industry. Actresses Joan Collins, Jane Seymour and Denise Richards presented in Madrid the premiere of the new series Glow and Darkness, remarking on the extraordinary circumstances of shooting amid COVID-19 pandemic. 87-year-old British actress Collins, best known for her role on the show Dynasty, said the hardest thing about shooting was knowing the danger of getting infected. The new Spanish series, directed by Spaniard Jose Luis Moreno, with a host of international actors, tells the story of Saint Francis of Assisi with characters as Barbarossa or Eleanor of Aquitaine.
With that, we come to the close of this edition of Global Scan, and we leave you with visuals that describe the world this week. Thanks for watching.